Welcome back to World According to Briggs and a video about where you can retire or just live on less than $1,900 a month in the Pacific Northwest, which is Oregon, Washington, Alaska, and Idaho. There are several region maps in the United States. This is the most common one. I will also tell you there's nothing from Alaska on here because any of the places that fell under $1,900 a month were not places I would recommend to anyone. Normally it's because of healthcare, remoteness, stuff like that. Now, the average Social Security check in 2025 is $1,976 a month. That's up from $1,927 in 2024. That's according to Kiplinger's personal finance page and the Social Security Department. I double checked it. And that's the basis of this video. Now, we're just looking at the basics of someone's life. We're not getting into their healthcare because that varies so much from person to person. It's really hard to get an average. So whatever number we have on here, you just add your monthly healthcare bill to it, and that's your number. We're looking at rent, utilities, transportation, self-service, and groceries. When it came to groceries, we just went with the national average, which depending on what department you look at, it's different. The Department of Labor and Statistics say that it's $504 per person a month. The USDA says it's between $238 and $434. We just kind of rounded it up to 500 and called it good. If you like this kind of content, make sure you give the video a big thumbs up and let me know what region you'd like to see next. Let's take a look. Number 10, Moses Lake, Washington. Life in Moses Lake is quieter than the big cities, with a good chunk of the fun things that you want to do. A lake, yes, that's where they got their name, decent access to nature, and a pace that doesn't force you into traffic every day. It's a smaller city in the Columbian Basin region of Washington, so you'll find fewer crowds, less rush, and more elbow room than, let's say, Seattle or Portland. The people there tend to drive themselves to work. The average commute's only about 14 minutes, and spending on day-to-day stuff tends to be fairly manageable. Groceries and things are all close to the U.S. average, maybe a little below. Utilities costs are notably lower than Washington's average. For someone looking to retire or just simplify their life, that means you can afford a decent lifestyle without the big city budget screaming at you every month. Now, one reason Moses Lake is relatively cheap is because housing and utilities cost significantly less compared to many other parts of Washington, where the average utilities are about $189 a month. And housing normally sits around half what you'd get in the Seattle metro area. Now, this is a farming place. It's basically agriculture, manufacturing, and they have a growing clean energy sector around here. It's not booming or anything like that, and that helps keep prices relatively low. When you have a big industry come in that just starts paying people a lot of money, prices go up. When you have a new industry that's just employing some people, not a bunch, prices stay about the same. So you have many of the same basic ingredients for a comfortable life here: housing, utilities, local services, without the premium price tag of a major metro area. Sure, you're a little bit out in the boondocks of Washington, but some people want that. Now, one thing I want to tell you about this place, since I've lived in the Pacific Northwest, I've heard that Moses Lake has the religious zealot and prepper types living all around there. I don't know that for sure, but I've heard it a few different times from a few different people. Now, that's fine, and most of those people leave you alone. They stick to themselves. If you run into one of those people, you'll know it because they usually steer the conversation to, are you ready for Armageddon? All right, here's the numbers. A one-bedroom in Moses Lake is about $995 a month. Utilities, about $170.25. Food, $500, like we said. Transportation, here they average it out to about $57 a month. Self-service, about $62.46, giving you a grand total of $1,784.71. That ain't bad. That's the most expensive one on this list. Number 9, Lewiston, Idaho. Living in Lewiston, Idaho gives you a slower pace of life tucked into a scenic corner of the Pacific Northwest. Nestled where the Snake River and Clearwater rivers meet, Lewiston offers you wide outdoor access and small city convenience. This place is really interesting. It's right where those rivers meet, so if you're into fishing, boating, or anything like that, you're going to have plenty of that to do here. They also have a couple golf courses on the outskirts of town. One is part of a community and the other one is a public golf course by the airport. They also have a pretty cool cafe called the Mystic Cafe. I don't know, I think it was 2017, 2018, somewhere around there. We drove through, ate there. It was really good. A strange thing happened in the parking lot there, ran into a guy I went to like second grade with. Well, we knew each other through high school, but hadn't seen him in years. And I'm from Southern California, all the way up there, run into a guy. I hope he was joking, but the first thing he said was, "Oh God, I hope you're not living here now." That being said, this isn't one of the more crowded parts of Idaho. This city is still pretty small. They only have about 34,000 people. So for retirees living on a limited income, this means less time stuck in traffic, fewer big city pressures, and more budget left over for enjoying riverside trails, local festivals, and simple home-based hobbies, I guess you could say. Things to do at home. What else is really cool for retirees? The cost of living here is about 10% lower than the national average. Lewiston isn't booming with the same tech wage inflation or luxury development you'll find in places like Seattle or Portland. So prices stay more grounded. Also, because it's not a big tourist magnet or major coastal town or anything like that, the demand that drives up living costs elsewhere is weak here, which is good if you're trying to stretch your retirement budget under $2,000 a month. Here's the numbers. A one-bedroom can go for about $947 a month. Utilities about $176.95. Food again $500. Transportation $61. Self-service $66.43 on average. Gives you a grand total of $1,751.38. Number 8, Roseburg, Oregon. Now, for those of you living in Midwest and Southern states that just recoiled in horror, Oregon, never. Start twitching, start screaming at the computer screen or your phone, it's all filled with Antifa. This city is about 2.5 hours away from Portland to the south. And if you know anything about Oregon, you should know that Portland is its own thing. The rest of Oregon is kind of normal. Oregon's really a libertarian state, not a liberal state. Portland is liberal. Oregon is a libertarian state. Really just a simple state. They have a few requests from the government. Stay out of what we have for weapons, what we put in our bodies for a good time or relaxation, who we marry, and how many strip clubs we have per city. But life in Roseburg, Oregon is pretty laid back and well suited for someone who wants to escape the super busy pace of big city life. It's a small city, population around 23,000, and it sits in the Umpqua River Valley, meaning you get pretty good mountain and forest scenery, clean air, and lots of outdoor time. The commute times here are short, the cost of living is pretty low, like groceries, utilities, and overall, it's not a bad place to live. The stats are not terrible, they're all kind of average. The cost of living in Roseburg is about 11% lower than the national average. For retirees, that's good news, especially if you're on a modest fixed income. As for why it's so affordable, there's a few key reasons. First, housing is much cheaper. While the home values have risen somewhat, they remain significantly lower than faster growing urban Oregon places like Portland. The area hasn't had the same economic boom that bigger places have had recently. This town was basically founded by lumberjacks. At one point, it was known as the timber capital of the nation. And still to this day, forest products play a big part in the area's economy. You've also got some pretty good hospitals there, Mercy Medical Center, and there's a VA hospital. For entertainment, you got the river and local wineries. Altogether, it makes Roseburg a solid candidate if you're trying to retire on a tighter budget or just live on a tighter budget. Not a bad place to be working from home, like a remote worker. Here's the number. A one-bedroom apartment there goes for, on average, $925. Utilities, about $174.34. Food, $500 again. Transportation, $56. Cell service, $64.53, giving you a grand total of $1,719.87 a month. Number 7, Longview, Washington. Life in Longview is like living in a diet version of Portland, Oregon. It's like Portland, Oregon light. This wasn't always the case. For years, the town acquired a bit of a bad reputation. They had a serious drug problem and a crime rate back in, let's say, 2020 that was 168% above the national average. These days, it's only 62% above the national average. That is an outstanding change. Now, we have cities and towns in this country that have crime rates that are 300% and 400% above the national average. So 62% above isn't great, but it's not terrible. They're moving in the right direction, but if they move any further in that direction, prices are going to start going up from everything from milk to rent to houses. Longview sits where the Cowlitz and the Columbia rivers meet, so you'll find calm river parks, trails around the lake, and plenty of space to breathe. It's about 50 miles north of Portland, Oregon, along Interstate 5. Residents can enjoy the convenience of a larger city while living tucked away from the big city buzz. In a nutshell, they're close enough to Portland, but also far enough away not to be wrapped up in the Rose City issues. And if you didn't know, Portland's name is the Rose City because we grow great roses here. Neighborhoods tend to be modest and safe. There are local shops and restaurants, nothing swanky, but serviceable. And the pace feels a little bit slower, which for retirees or someone living modestly, that could be just what the doctor ordered. Now, the reason Longview is so affordable compared to Portland is it's out there by itself. It's mostly hills, mountains, farmland around it. Across the river, you got Rainier, and then Castle Rock's not too far away, but those are both small towns. If you do want to move to Longview, you got quite a few cool things to do. They've got a few golf courses. Of course, the rivers are there. More than enough places to go hiking, even camping if that's your thing. If you live on the outskirts of town here, you're going to find rivers and creeks all over the place. And you might have to shoo things like bears and raccoons out of your trash cans, unlike Portland where you're shooing homeless out of your trash cans. Here's the numbers. A one bedroom in Longview is about $925. Utilities about $171.55. Food $500, transportation $58, cell service about $62.25, giving you a grand total of $1,716.80 a month. Number 6, Tillamook, Oregon. Tillamook offers a slower-paced, small-town feel on the coast. Sitting on the Oregon coast, it's surrounded by green forests, rivers, and of course the ocean. So days can easily begin with a walk on the beach or tide pool exploration. The town is backed by strong roots in dairy farming. The famous local cheese and creamery business gives the place a friendly working community vibe. The average rent here for one bedroom is around $900, which is far lower than many coastal or metro areas. This is where you'll find the Tillamook Creamery. It's where they make cheese and milk and yogurt and all that good stuff. I've actually taken a tour of the place. It's pretty interesting. You get to see them making the cheese and all that. You know, they got these windows above everything. So you walk around, check all that stuff out. But what's really cool is the food place they got there. Oh, great pizza, ice cream. It's a good place to gain some weight. Now, Tillamook itself, the city, is in from the coast a little bit. All around it, it's farmland, and it's got rivers and sloughs. And if you want to go down the ocean, the closest is probably Netarts, which is about 11 minutes away. The Tillamook Bay is about 8 minutes away. But the actual ocean, about 11 minutes away in Netarts, but most people will go up to like Rockaway Beach. They also got the Tillamook Air Museum, which is really cool. And of course, the Tillamook State Forest in your backyard. I've been to Tillamook quite a few times. It's a nice place. You know, older buildings, slower pace of life. They have a cool little store there also that I like. I went in, we talked to the girl that owns the place, I think, on 3rd and Main called Sunflower Flats. Tillamook also has an old theater. Oh my God, I love old theaters. The Tillamook Coliseum. They play older movies. Currently, they have Nightmare on Elm Street, the original, playing, alongside the original Friday the 13th. Good movies. Now, as far as affordability goes, because it's a smaller town with fewer big city services and less demand for luxury amenities, many costs stay lower. Less traffic, smaller local markets, fewer high-priced restaurants and condos. Also, the area is beautiful, but it's remote enough that it doesn't command the expensive premiums of major tourist hubs. So if you want some affordable coastal living, Tillamook may be calling your name. Here's the numbers. The average one bedroom goes for about $910 a month. Utilities, $172.32 on average. Food, $500. Transportation, about $56. Cell phone, $64.23. Gives you a grand total of $1,702.55. Not bad. Number 5, Yakima, Washington. Yakima, Washington is situated in the very fertile Yakima Valley, known for its wineries and apple orchards. Yakima, like some of the other places on this video, are out there by themselves. Now, these aren't small towns, they're, smaller cities, but they're way away from any major hubs. The nearest city bigger than Yakima is Kennewick, and that's over an hour away. There's a pretty good sense of community in Yakima. And the downtown area has been making some small improvements with local shops and restaurants. The weather is drier than on the coast, so you'll get hot summers, mild springs, and snowy winters without all the constant rain of Seattle. People who live here tend to appreciate that it still feels like a real town, one where everyone knows the name of the person running the local hardware store type of town, or city in this case. Now, again, because it's in from the coast and really not near anything major, Yakima's affordable. Affordable for everyone, not just retirees. It's a great place to live if you're a retiree that likes some good wine. If you like wine and you like to fish, move to Yakima, Washington. I was here a few years back. Their downtown's kind of cute. It really does feel like a small town, like their little main street areas. They got a couple blocks where, it looks pretty nice. Definitely not a bad place to live if you don't mind being really far away from the coast. I mean, this is like the dead center of the state almost. I should say dead center in the lower portion of Washington. It's still affordable because they've never really tried to reinvent themselves into a tech hub or anything like that. They've got what they've got going on, and they just kind of improve on it. The local economy relies on steady but modest industries like farming, food processing, and distribution, which keeps wages low but also keeps costs down. Rent and property taxes are much lower than Seattle or Portland, and you don't have to pay a premium for locations that you do in places that are closer to the Puget Sound. This is a working class city that is affordable. Here's their numbers. The average one-bedroom apartment goes for $900 a month, utilities $171.55, food $500, transportation $59, cell service about $62.13, giving you a grand total of $1,692.68. Number 4, Pendleton, Oregon. Pendleton sits about 3.5 hours east of Portland, Oregon, which is just the way the locals like it. It's really not a big place. They have a population of about 17,000 people, and it's got a nice river flowing through town. Now, one of their biggest things is their rodeo every year. If you want to go, next year it's being held on September 12th through the 19th. It's called the Pendleton Roundup, and it's supposed to be a good time. I've never been to that. Probably because I look ridiculous in a cowboy hat. One of my good friends moved out there probably about 5 years ago. Pendleton is definitely for people that want a slower pace of life. It is out there by itself, and it's definitely not in that rainy, green area of Portland. I wouldn't say it's in the desert, but when you compare it to the Portland metro area or the coastal range we have here, it looks like the desert. This is also where the Pendleton company started, the one that, makes the nice jackets and all that stuff. It's a source of local pride, along with the Pendleton Roundup. If you talk to most people that are living there, they will tell you they like being 3 hours away from Portland. Here's their numbers. The average one bedroom here goes for about $895. Utilities are about $1,072.32. Food, $500. Transportation, about $67. Cell service, about $64.25. Gives you a grand total of $1,687.57. Number 3, La Grande, Oregon. La Grande, Oregon is a small, quiet college town tucked between the Blue Mountains and the rolling plains of Eastern Oregon. Locals spend their weekends hiking, fishing, and watching football games at Eastern Oregon University. The downtown area feels cozy, restaurants, small shops, and farmers markets, and that's about it. Winters here can be cold and snowy, but the scenery makes it worth it. Mountains, forests, and wide open skies that make you feel like you've got the whole world to yourself. La Grande's just down the road from Pendleton, the number 4 on this list. It's about the halfway mark between Pendleton and Baker City, which is probably the biggest city in Eastern Oregon, even though Baker has about 3,000 less people. La Grande is part of the state that wants to break off and go over to Idaho for some reason. If it ever did happen, which it won't, but 20 years down the line, the politics could change of Idaho. Are they going to want to come back to Oregon then? There are 3 things that occupy the average human's brain: work, relationships, and conspiracies or rebellion. This is their rebellion. It's on their head. They think about it all the time, and the people out here act like it's going to happen. It'll never happen. But it gives the locals something to do and makes them feel like they hold some sway over what goes on in Oregon. La Grande's economy leans heavy on education, healthcare, and local agriculture, which means wages are modest, but also keeps housing and groceries affordable. I've never been on the Eastern Oregon campus, but a few of my kids' friends have gone there, and they all loved it. They thought it was a great place to go to college, which in reality, I'd rather send my kids to some place like that than USC in California, where it's like downtown LA. But if you want to retire in La Grande, it's a pretty solid option. For a small town out in the middle of nowhere, they don't have that many boarded up shops. Not because it's dangerous or anything like that. It's just, local businesses are going under because of the internet. Amazon has put a lot of places out of business in this country. And, doesn't seem like it's hit LeGrand that bad. Here's the numbers. The average one bedroom goes for about $823 a month. That is not bad. Utilities, only $169.70 a month. Food, $500. Transportation, about $59. Cell service, about $65.23, giving you a grand total of $1,616.93. That is not bad. Number 2, Idaho Falls, Idaho. Idaho Falls offers a mix of convenience and access to nature that's rare for the price. You'll find a downtown river walk along the Snake River, local art museums, and shopping without the rush and the high cost of a major metro area. Because housing, utilities, and groceries cost significantly less than many other places, it's easier to stretch a retirement budget, dine out occasionally, and still set aside money for unexpected expenses. Groceries run about 4% lower than the national average, and that helps keep your prices down. So you might get well below that $500 mark. Guy used to work on my car, moved to Idaho Falls back in the mid-90s, and I talked to him once or twice since then. He loved Idaho Falls. I haven't talked to him since probably about 2005, but he loved it. His dad was getting older, and I guess they had some other family up there. So his dad wanted to go live near family. It's a funny story. I think his father's long dead now, but they owned a mechanic shop. And he'd be at lunch, and his dad would always be roaming around the garage or whatever. And they'd be at lunch. They'd come back from lunch, and, they had the doors closed, so it was kind of hot in there. Well, Dad's still working on a car, but he stripped down to nothing and was still working on the car. They're like, Dad, you can't do that. We have customers coming in. But his dad's, I didn't realize. Idaho Falls is a great place to live, and you probably won't have to worry about naked mechanics or anything like that. This is another city that sits on the Snake River, which, again, plenty of fishing. They got a handful of golf courses in the area, in town and on the outskirts. Overall, it checks a lot of boxes for retirees. Like any place in Idaho, I'd advise not telling people you came from California. They have a real bug in their butt about that one. If a local asks where you're from, if you're from California, I would go with I just got out of prison or aliens abducted me and dropped me back off here. They'll accept that better than I came from California. All right, here's the numbers. The average one bedroom in Idaho Falls is $795. Utilities, $167.33. Food, $500. Transportation, $61. Cell service, $66.43, giving you a grand total of $1,589.76 a month. That is not bad. All right, before we get to number 1, if you're thinking about moving to any one of these cities or any place in the United States, there's a link for a website called Home and Money in the description area below. Contact them. They could help you out with your home buying journey anywhere in the United States. All right, on to number 1. And number 1, Pocatello, Idaho. Life in Pocatello, Idaho moves at a slower, friendlier pace. It's a mid-sized town surrounded by mountains with hiking trails that start practically in your backyard. Locals still wave at each other at stoplights, and the downtown area has a mix of old brick buildings, thrift stores, and diners that feel stuck in time in the best way possible. Idaho State University adds some youth and culture, so retirees get a nice balance of quiet living and small bursts of activity from college sports to local events. Winters can get cold here, but that's when everyone heads to nearby ski areas or stays warm with the town's many coffee shops and breweries. What really makes Pocatello cheap is simplicity. Housing costs are far below the national average. Small apartments and older homes rent for half of what you'd pay on big coastal cities. Property taxes are low, groceries and gas are reasonable, and the local government keeps costs down by not trying to be fancy. There's no big tech scene or rush hour gridlock driving up prices here, just a practical economy built around education, healthcare, and small businesses. It's not flashy, but if you're living well below $2,000 a month, Pocatello gives you comfort, community, and enough left over for, a weekend trip to Yellowstone. Here's the numbers. An average one bedroom here goes for $745. Utilities about $167.33. Food $500. Transportation $61. Cell service $66.13, giving you a grand total of $1,539.46. Way to go, Pocatello! Alright, that's today's video. If you like this one, you'll probably like one of the two being suggested right now, like top 10 retirement hotspots in the US or cheap mountain towns. Everybody have a great day. Be nice to each other.